Now, 3D space is something you won't be able to replicate in Premiere. It's important to note that you'll mostly be animating 2D objects in 3D space, what most of us call 2.5D. Plus, with native After Effects plugins, you won't be able to replicate the 3D textures of, say, Blender or Cinema 4D or other 3D programs, and yet there's so much you can still do natively inside of After Effects. And you can even add plugins to assist your 3D workflows, such as Element 3D by Video Copilot. With a visual layer selected, toggle a 3D layer here. Now you've got these 3 colored arrows, and you can select those to move or rotate your layer on the X, Y, and Z axes. If you twirl down your layer properties, you will also see some new options under Transform, including these extra rotation options and a triple value position. So X is left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is closer and further away, farther, which sounds really British, closer and farther. Let's make things a little more interesting. The best way to see these transformations is by adding another view in the composition window by clicking here. The second view defaults to above or top, and you can change it by clicking on the view and then selecting it here. You can also have 4 views instead of 2, which does come in handy in some instances. What if you didn't just want to move one layer? So this is where cameras come in. Let's select New Camera. The camera settings box will appear, and you can of course just use the default, you'll be fine. There are quite a few custom options here, and you can also change these options later at any time. Usually you'll want a 35mm, but if you want something wider, you'll move towards 15mm. And if you want more parallaxing, you'll head towards 200mm. In many ways, it's the same as using a real camera. They've tried to replicate it as close as they can, so you camera buffs are way ahead of the rest of us. So twirl down our new camera's properties to see Transform. We can keyframe a track in or dolly in by creating 2 keyframes and changing the Z value of the second keyframe. Rather than it looking like scaling up the layers, you can see the parallax effect, where the layers closer to the camera are growing faster. Twirl down the camera options and you'll be able to turn on depth of field. Now when you change the aperture, you'll be able to get a shallow depth of field and draw the eye. And this line here is telling you where the focal distance is, and you can change that. You can also keyframe a focus pull using the focus distance. Another way to move around in 3D space is using the orbit, pan under, and dolly toward cursor tools. It gives you a little more freedom when creating keyframes, but a lot less precision, so I don't personally use them much. Just like when you're filming something in the real world, a shot can be awesome or meh with lighting. Go to Layer, New, Light to bring up the light settings, and there are 4 native lights: parallel, spot, point, and ambient. So what are they? A point light is like a bulb with no softbox or barn doors. It's just going to send light from that point in all directions, just like most on-set practicals. You know, like if you had no lampshade on a light, it's just blasting light everywhere. A spotlight will point in a certain direction using the cone. Expand the cone using cone angle, and even feather it like this. So once you turn on one of these lights, it will go from the default of everything being equally lit to some areas maybe being too dark because the light's not pointed in that direction. For this problem, we can use an ambient light. With 15 years in After Effects, I have still never used a parallel light, so I'm just going to skip that one for today. You can change the color of these lights, allowing for even more customization and contrast in your scene. My slit scan effect is really just a camera dollying forward with a layer on either side. It's a pre-comp with just static lines in it, and I'm just moving through it. This VHS box is just one layer split into 3 using masks and then rotated in 3D space, making sure the sides meet. So these neon signs are all individual layers. I think I made them in Illustrator. And the depth of field is really helping sell this look. So try it out, have a mess around. Don't worry, there is still some in-depth 3D learning to come. Happy editing, and I'll see you in the next lesson.